There's a bit.ly there and a QR code. This is Restoring Media Literacy in a Post-Truth AI World. This is a presentation I did about 3 years ago during COVID, and I have revised it. A lot has happened in about 3 years, so I had to do a lot of restoring of this presentation itself. But again, if you went to this presentation later, there is a QR code and the bit.ly. If you want to follow me, I am currently on Twitter at Mr. Library. I'm not on Threads yet, but I will add that to my link tree as soon as I do. And then my email address is as well. So first of all, defining what post-truth is. Many of you have heard the definition. Basically, it is relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. And that has only gotten, I think, more and more entrenched in our culture the last few years. Some definitions of misinformation and disinformation. Misinformation being information that is wrong, that we're all guilty of spreading. Disinformation being deliberately misleading information. It could be an agenda or manipulated narrative or propaganda. So there's a difference between the two. Sometimes they're used interchangeably. I want to talk a little bit about why we believe in things that are false sometimes, and because I think that it helps us to be humble about. Because some of us are like, oh, I can never fall for something, but we are kind of wired to fall for things. Our brain actually tries to prevent us from accepting ideas that might alienate us from our social networks or our cliques. So the more often that people think that people like them, believe, or act in a certain way, the more their brains wire them to do or believe or act in that way. And UCLA neurologist Matthew Lieberman, he coined that the social brain. George Lakoff has a saying, don't think of an elephant. And when I say that, what's the first thing you think of? You think of an elephant. It's kind of hard to not think of the negative. And that's one of the thorny reasons that it is hard to get rid of misinformation or disinformation once it's been planted, because a lot of times media will lead with like the negative thing. Or like the opposite of the opposite. And so a lot of times the false thing will get planted, and it's really hard to unlearn that. So when we're trying to wrestle with how to get across truth, the truth sandwich is something that has been found to work, stating the fact, and then debunking the lie without repeating it, and then restating the fact again. These kind of techniques are really helpful. A lot of people get really cynical, and they're just like, well, you're not going to change anyone's mind on social media anyway. Why even try with media literacy? And they just kind of give up. And it's really easy to feel that way. But there's actually evidence that people do change their minds. And I think that gives us a lot of encouragement for the rest of what I'm about to share with you. Users have cited views such as Black Lives Matter, political parties, other ideologies, and political figures. These are things that users have cited changing their minds on because of something that they have seen on social media. These are the top methods of spreading misinformation and disinformation. Social media, of course, just regular discourse and memes and trolls and bots, but also manipulated content. It could be something that's out of context, or it could be a deep fake. It could be AI generated or altered images or altered text or altered audio. These are things that seem correct when you first see them, and then they can confuse people. Chat or forum echo chambers, influencers on TikTok or YouTube or public figures, and then just misinformation even by broadcast media. Sometimes broadcast media gets it wrong, sometimes intentionally, but a lot of times just unintentionally, just rushing to just get a story out. These are some of the top methods of spreading false information. So I like to play around, and so I went to Las Vegas recently to celebrate my anniversary, and we left our kids at home, actually with Grammy and Papal, and they watched them, and we had planned to go to New York later in the summer with the kids, and so I decided I would text my son, and I was like, "Hey, we decided to go to New York without you. Hope that's okay." And we took a picture beside the replica of the Statue of Liberty in Las Vegas. And I really, really wanted to prank my son to see what he would say. And he immediately responded, "Just getting this, and that looks like a very old photo. Like you have your beard shaved and everything." Because the last time he saw me, I looked a little bit different. I guess he didn't realize that I could actually shave since I last saw him. But I was like, "Hey, that Statue of Liberty selfie I sent you was from this week and on an old pic. Did you not notice that I'm clean shaven when I got home?" Because I sent this one actually when I got home. This pic below is an old pic from when we visited Statue of Liberty last time. Notice the goatee and timestamp. So I'm trying to get him to think about, like, am I really pranking him, or did we actually go to New York without him? And like, what's the evidence that like I actually went to New York without my son and daughter? And so he says Photoshop. So he still doesn't think that like maybe that photo is real. He's been trained to be a little more cynical. So he starts to think about it, and eventually he figures out that there is if you zoom in, you can see that the roller coaster ride behind the Statue of Liberty in Las Vegas, obviously the real one does not have a roller coaster. So he figured out that it was a sort of a cropped image to make it look like it was actually in New York. And so that we want our students to think about like the images that they're seeing. More recently, just in this election cycle, the governor of Florida, he shared an apparent AI generated image of Trump and Fauci being besties. You can see the examples of them in real life versus the fake ones. He's hugging him in the fake ones. As you may know, they're not that close, but DeSantis still try to get a little bit get some donations from this. So I posed a poll to some of my friends on the book face, and I sent out a Google form. I just want to get their idea of how confident they are in their own ability to detect if text is generated or modified by AI. There's not a lot of responses, it's about 17 here. This is not a scientific poll, but it does, I think, give you just a sense. As you can see, most were not confident at all in most people's ability to detect text modified by AI. Looking at the next one, how confident are you most people's ability to currently detect if an image or video is generated by modified by AI? Again, not confident at all in other people's ability to detect images or video. I also asked them about their own ability, and that changed. They're not confident in other people, but they're a lot more confident in their own. They didn't say that they were very confident, except for my son. He's the green pie piece there. But most said somewhat confident, which is a little bit more than not confident, at least. Gave themselves a little bit more credibility there. Same thing with image or video. They gave themselves a little bit more credibility to detect than they gave most people. So, and I think that that's generally the case. We tend to be a little bit more confident of ourselves versus others. And then I also asked them, was this poll AI produced? And more than half of them said, I'm not sure. So there's at least some healthy skepticism out there about, can we be tricked by AI? And then somebody wrote in and said, would Tim do that to us? Well, I would, but I didn't do it in this case. So here are some media literacy skills that are crucial in an AI world, because then this information researchers have raised alarms about AI chatbots. We're going to see that a lot in, I think, the next election cycle. So media lit skills are especially crucial now more than ever. Critical thinking is an important skill now more than ever. Privacy, verification, and fact checking. Biases, understanding biases, that they're still there. Visual literacy, emotional intelligence, ethical considerations, IP and copyright. Those are skills that we need to still try to teach and teach them more than ever. And I know that this is true because when I asked ChatGPT what skills were crucial in media literacy, these are the 8 that it gave me. So I know that this is factually accurate. I said it a little tongue in cheek, but I did get these 8 from ChatGPT. I thought they were pretty good. So one of the areas that I mentioned was biases in AI. And Jean Darnell, who is one of the speakers on our Boss Librarian panel, you can follow her at Awaken Librarian. She asked ChatGPT to write a paper on Black history for Black History Month. And she found that the results were extremely whitewashed and that robots carry the same basic prejudices and biases. She found that not included among ChatGPT's response didn't even reference the first Black president. It didn't mention the history of lynching. It didn't mention any pre-enslavement history, the denial of the right to read or congregate or own property, and more. Now, maybe if you had asked like more like a follow-up questions or something, but like originally, like it totally just whitewashed the entire thing, which is a little bit scary and frightening. What was included? Mostly what racists did to Black people and how Black people overcame largely through nonviolent resistance and civil disobedience, a very whitewashed picture of what they would like us to talk about during Black History Month. It's important to realize that these large language models, they're prone to producing whatever history that is scraped from sources, and that includes whatever biases those sources have. So, with all that considered, how can we be hopeful that AI tools will not whitewash when reporting current events? Like Google is testing an AI tool that is able to write news articles. Not only is that an issue for journalists and their jobs, even though it's meant as a helpmate, it could have bias, and that's not good. And that's something that our students need to be able to think about if schools will let us talk about that. This is probably not a good sign either. As you know, Twitter, now called X, is threatening a lawsuit against a nonprofit organization that researches links between social media and extremism. Elon Musk rejects their findings that it increases, that there's been an increase in hate speech on the platform after he took over. But this is not a good sign. Michael Caulfield, he is a misinformation researcher. And not only that, he developed the SIFT method for evaluating information. And he's already sounding the alarms on election 2024. Not only are the former methods of misinformation still spread, but still with us, but now we have AI, which just makes it even more complicated. He posted this on Twitter or X or whatever we want to call it. This meme showing the different flood levels, and he's just predicting that like it's going to get worse this year. It's going to get worse the year after. We better get more prepared for this. So here are some tools for fostering media literacy in a post-truth AI world. So some of you might be familiar with the CRAP method. Mike Caulfield pioneered the 4 SIFT moves. because he thought that the crap method was a bunch of crap. Basically, this are his 4 moves for SIFT. First of all, encouraging students to stop and just kind of like ask, are you familiar with the source? If you're not familiar with it, then you might need to do some more digging. Investigating the source. That's what the I stands for. F is for find better or other sources. This gets more into lateral reading, making sure that you're reading multiple perspectives to see if others are reporting the same thing. Are they all reputable sources reporting the same thing? And then tracing. Can you trace the claims and quotes and media back to the original source and context using reverse image search, things of that nature. The beauty of SIFT is that you can start at T, or you can start at I or F or S. It doesn't have to be in any sort of order. So this is a really great toolkit for learning how to evaluate sources. In addition to the reasons I've already mentioned, it's better at addressing information overload. Crap is just, there's a whole checklist. It's kind of rigid. And there's less emphasis on evaluating the source, which can play into the hand of authors of disinformation. There's more emphasis on deciding if a source is worth your time. Is this worth my time reading it? If it's worth it, then you can go on. I would also just encourage activities where students are having fun. Breakyournews.com is a site you can go to where anybody can just upload an image. It can be an AI image, it can be just an image just taken out of context, and they can write some really crazy headline. And then after they're done with the activity and they're having fun creating their own little clickbait or sensationalist story, you can then ask the class, what real world consequence might our fake news story have? And you can get some really good discussion out of that. Gamification resources are also a good way for students to play. Students learn a lot through play. Adults learn a lot through play as well. Bad News, getbadnews.com is a game where you try to like amass more social media followers by making more and more crazy, doing more and more crazy things online, making the lies more and more elaborate. And as you make your lies more elaborate, then your followers grow and grow and grow. It's a good lesson on how lies are spread faster than truth does. Google has Interland, which is another great online resource for younger kids. For your card lovers, there is a critical thinking cards deck. This is less about fake news and disinformation and more about just our own cognitive biases, how we think about things. That will help us to spot manipulation and dodgy logic, propaganda techniques that advertisers and politicians in the media and our own brain do. This is how we get hoodwinked to begin with. And so these can be just fun to kind of have in the classroom or in the library, where they can kind of pick them up and, learn a little bit on their own. There's also a game you can play. Additionally, I think the graphic novel is a great way to foster media literacy skills, in particular, drawing your own comics. Graphic novels are really popular. They're increasingly popular in classrooms, but there's still some buy-in that's needed. But I think the graphic novel can be a game changer in teaching media literacy. There's lots of graphic novels on all kinds of subjects, so it can be used across the curriculum in an entire school. That's one reason I really like it. The graphic novel title exists for every content area. So I have a couple challenges here for students to create their own comics that can help them really think about media literacy. The first one, you could challenge students to create a short comic that alternates between student-drawn panels, photographs, and IA created panels, or just two of those three, but kind of going back and forth. The example on the right is a page from the graphic novel, The Photographer, which gave me the idea. What Emmanuel did is he took photographs and then he kind of alternated back and forth between that and his own drawings, which makes the reader really think about the content in a lot more critical of a way. Like, why did the photographer choose this cropping versus another cropping? Same way for the animation, and it drives home some of the media literacy skills you see there: tech literacy, media production, cross media literacy, ethical media use, IP understanding, as well as just AI understanding. How easy it is to create AI and how much AI can look like photos. And the second challenge, you can have them create a short comic that fills in the gaps of the gutter between two panels. The gutter is like that blank area between two boxes in a comic. Have them fill in the gaps between two panels of a news story to amplify underreported stories, including stories of marginalized groups. Media literacy skills like critical thinking, inference, visual literacy, fact checking, and bias recognition can be reinforced through this particular challenge. If you're looking for blank comic book pages, Jarrett Lerner has a lot of great resources on his own page. He has how to draw instructions, story starters, and others. There's some other comics creation tools as well. If you're wanting to do something more digital, you can do comic creation through Google Slides. You can do it through Book Creator, and there's a video on Book Creator there in the bottom right-hand corner. Canva, there's so many templates through Canva. Padlet, Pixton, Tim Smith, who has a book out on using graphic novels in the classroom. He uses Pixton a lot, which is a web-based comic creator. So, and I know there's more than these 12, but these are just a few. A couple years ago, when I was teaching a communication skills course, I had a unit on propaganda and advertising techniques. And after the Super Bowl, I had my class, high school class of mostly sophomores, find a Super Bowl ad that they really liked, and then just kind of distill that Super Bowl ad into like 6 to 8 panels, and then share what advertising techniques they found in it. And I told them, give me 2 of those. So we've been studying that. This particular student used a Peyton Manning beer commercial. Had a lot more cuts than you see here in the comic, but he had to distill it down to 6 to 8. Made him really think about angles and why certain shots help persuade audience members and viewers. This student identified the testimonial, the focal point, and repetition. The point of this sort of activity isn't to encourage them to be a good illustrator. Even though this is a really good illustration, the point is for them to have some metacognition, to really think about what they're thinking about, and to really give it some thought. Some other book resources that are out there on media literacy include Fact versus Fiction by Jennifer Lagarde, Kirsten Manson's Digital Citizenship in Action, and then a CIA analyst guide to spotting fake news, true or false. There's some good teaching resources. These are just 5 online resources. There are dozens, if not hundreds, out there. These are just ones that I picked that I particularly like. The NAMLY conference offers a once-a-year virtual conference, so you don't have to be able to travel there. And so NAMLY, it's a professional development conference that's dedicated to specifically media literacy education. So there's all kinds of topics. If you're more interested in media literacy and getting better at media literacy, and teaching media literacy, that is a must, possibly. Namely, also host Media Literacy Week, and this year it's October 23rd through 27th. There are some certifications you can get free from PBS and KQED, as well as very verified from Media Literacy in the Baltics. Public libraries can actively collaborate and partner with school librarians. And generally, what works effectively, I found, is being social, normalizing humility. Like, we all get things wrong sometimes, not shaming when people get something wrong. Framing the truth first and last reinforces information. Storytelling, like I mentioned with the comics, it helps to kind of build trust. I also, shared my own story with my son, the Statue of Liberty. Those are just some examples. And this play helps us learn, and visuals help us to remember. The more we can get the whole school to buy in, the better. And I'm running low on time here, so I'm next presenting at AASL 23, and I'll be teaching. I'll be presenting teaching media literacy using graphic novels. So I'll talk more about what I touched on in this presentation a little earlier at that one. And then there's the bit.ly again, if you would like to request the slides. So let me look at the Q&A and see if there's any questions.
Yes, actually, says, hi, Tim, thank you for your brilliant presentation. I'm sorry, my phone didn't catch it, but can you share the presentation QR code one more time?
Okay, and so I have it here at the very end.
Okay.
So I hope you should be able to get that.
Okay. So we're going to give this a couple of more seconds so we can hold it up on the screen. Thank you, Tim. The break your own news activity, that sounds really fascinating, especially to use with middle school students and to get bad
news. Fun.
Yeah, so that sounds pretty dope to use. So thank you so much for your presentation here. This is really a treat to listen to. Thank you kindly.
Thank you so much.
So I'm going to sing you something so you can, add some additional notes for our attendees tonight, so that we will, use as an ongoing Google Doc for everybody. Okay, so thanks again. Appreciate you.